I'm FBI Deputy Assistant Director Christopher Rea. I'm from our Counterterrorism Division at headquarters. I'm also joined by Assistant Special Agent in Charge Alethea Duncan from our New Orleans office, who you heard from yesterday. I'm here to discuss not only the latest investigative information we have here in New Orleans, but I'll also let you know about other investigative activities outside of the state. I first, and most importantly, want to send our deepest condolences to the victims of this horrific attack and their loved ones. 14 innocent victims were killed in this senseless attack, and at least 35 are injured. We cannot ease the grief people in this community and across the nation are feeling at this time, but rest assured, we stand with you and in support of you. All the resources, and I'm going to go into that a little bit later, all the resources of the FBI are being focused on tracking down every piece of evidence, every lead, every interview, every potential lead we've got. While I won't be able to answer all your questions today, my goal is to be as forthcoming as possible with you on what we've uncovered so far. First and foremost, let me be very clear about this point. This was an act of terrorism. It was premeditated and an evil act. This was obviously a critical incident, and with that, lots of information and tips come pouring in from law enforcement, first responders, and the public. We have been aggressively running down these tips and information. As you all know, that takes time, and we will continue to do so until every lead has been followed through on. This investigation is only a little more than 24 hours old. So I ask you to keep in mind that as I go through some of the specifics later. But at this point, currently, and this is another fact I want to be clear on, we do not assess at this point that anyone else involved in this attack except for Shamsa Din Jabbar, the subject you've already been briefed on. A little bit about what the FBI is doing. So we are surging people and assets to the area from across the region and across the nation. Special agents in multiple field offices across the country have been deployed and are assisting with potential aspects of this investigation and following up on every lead. Additional teams of special agents, professional staff, and victim specialists continue to arrive to provide more investigative power and assistance to the victims and their families. We've also forward deployed a number of our critical incident response group assets, including members of our hostage rescue team, special agent bomb technicians, and crisis management coordinators. In addition, we have deployed more evidence response technicians to continue to process the various scenes that we have. So far, we have received just over 400 tips from the public, and that information is being followed up on both here in New Orleans and across the country. Some of the tips are here in New Orleans, and there are other tips in other states across the country that we are following up on. The FBI team and our law enforcement partners here are also reviewing hundreds of hours of surveillance and other video from both the French Quarter and other locations. As for a timeline, at this point, investigators believe Jabbar picked up the rented F-150 in Houston, Texas on December 30th. He then drove from Houston to New Orleans on the evening of the 31st, and he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. FBI and ATF. FBI, we have a couple different scenes at the location. We have released the scene at Bourbon Street. That scene has been released. We also have a scene off of Mandeville address where we are currently searching that scene right now. FBI and ATF agents have secured that house, and that location is being searched for potential evidence. On New Year's morning, Jabbar opened fire after ramming through a blocked-off area of Bourbon Street, used his truck as a weapon to run over the victims. Teams of specially trained victim specialists, again, as I said, are on the ground here in New Orleans, assisting survivors of the attack and loved ones of the deceased. We do not believe the public is in any danger around any of these locations. 3 phones linked to Jabbar have been recovered, and digital media exploitation is a priority to see what is on the devices and determine if there are any other potential leads. Additionally, we have recovered 2 laptops and are currently reviewing them for any potential leads. Those laptops were recovered at the Mandeville address. Evidence technicians will also be going over the F-150 truck Jabbar was driving. As you know, we recovered an ISIS flag from the back of the vehicle. Jabbar declared his support for the terrorist group on social media, as I stated before, as he made his way to New Orleans. FBI bomb technicians also recovered 2 IEDs in coolers, one from the cross-section of Bourbon and Orleans Street, and the second at an intersection approximately 2 blocks away. There were multiple reports of other devices. Those reports turned out to be misinformation or not actual functioning devices. Those are the only 2 devices that we've been able to recover that were functional. Both devices were rendered safe on scene. We did obtain surveillance footage showing Jabbar placing the devices where they were found. 2 other, as I said before, 2 other items of interest were determined not to be IEDs. A little bit about Jabbar. Jabbar himself was born in the United States and is a U.S. military veteran. We are looking in everything in his life. While we have interviewed many people who know Jabbar, we still need to talk to others. Whether you know Jabbar personally, worked with him, served in the military, or saw him in New Orleans or Texas, we need to talk to you. You may not think you have relevant information, but what you know could tie in to one of our investigative leads. Specifically, we want to talk to anyone who was in the French Quarter on New Year's Eve or early on New Year's Day. That includes people spotted near one of the 2 IEDs on Bourbon Street. The IED was inside a cooler, and many people stopped and looked at the cooler and then continued on their way. Let's be clear, again, we do not believe at this point these people are involved in this incident in any way. We want to speak to them as witnesses and want to know what they saw and when. I went down to the crime scene last night. It is very hard to put into words what it looked like and how difficult it was to see. Anyone with information can call us at 1-800-CALL-FBI or send digital tips to fbi.gov/Bourbon Street attack. Early this morning, evidence response teams finished their work at the crime scene. Bourbon Street has been turned over to the city of New Orleans. As you know, there's also an FBI investigation in Las Vegas. We are following up on all potential leads and not ruling everything out. However, at this point, there is no definitive link between the attack here in New Orleans and the one in Las Vegas. And again, I'll preface everything with...
All right, everyone, we are awaiting...
Which was, this is very early in an investigation like this. Again, our thoughts and prayers are with the victims of this tragedy and everyone impacted across the country. They remain at the heart of our investigation. I also although I've only been on the ground here a short time, I also want to express a sincere appreciation for our partners here, which include the U.S. Attorney's Office, HSI, ATF, the New Orleans PD, the Louisiana State Police, the Governor's Office, and countless others. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to the Special Agent in charge of ATF here, Josh Jackson.
News to tell you about. We're now learning the man connected to the rental of the Cybertruck that exploded outside of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas is a U.S. Special Forces soldier. Surveillance video shows the moment a Tesla Cybertruck exploded. Police say the driver detonated a combination of fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel. The FBI now working to figure out whether this was indeed an act of terrorism. The driver was killed and at least 7 people were injured. And CNN's Natasha Chen joins us now from Las Vegas. Natasha, some very interesting information coming in from our Haley Britsky over at the Pentagon. About the man connected to the rental of this Cybertruck. What more are you learning?
Right, Jim. Well, Haley has confirmed in just the last few minutes that he is an active duty U.S. Special Forces soldier assigned to 10th Special Forces Group, according to 4 U.S. officials, that he holds the rank of Master Sergeant, a senior enlisted rank, these officials said. 3 officials said he was on active duty serving in Germany, and he was on leave when this happened on New Year's Day. He has not been identified publicly, and authorities are still trying to work out whether this was a terrorist attack. Now, just to recap a little bit of what happened behind us just 24 hours ago, approximately, there are still police presence here around the valet area of where you pull into the Trump International Hotel just off of the Vegas Strip. This Cybertruck that he allegedly rented was rented from Colorado from the Turo rental platform. Authorities say that he drove it here to Las Vegas by 7:30 a.m. on New Year's Day, that he drove up and down the Strip, and then about an hour before the explosion drove past the Trump Hotel as well. And police did make note that the damage was really limited because of the body construction of this Tesla Cybertruck, saying that, you know, the front glass of the Trump Hotel behind us did not even suffer any damage. The driver inside did die from this explosion. There were 7 other people injured, Jim.
All right, Natasha Chen, get back to us if you hear anything else. We really appreciate it. For more on this, CNN's Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller joins us now. John, let's start with this new information coming in from our Haley Britsky over at the Pentagon. How shocking is this, that this was an active duty soldier? To me, I mean, the fact that this was a U.S. Special Forces soldier assigned to the 10th Special Forces Group, I mean, that tells us that this individual had some expertise if he is indeed the person who was inside the Cybertruck in addition to renting it.
Well, this is information we first reported last night, that he was a U.S. Special Forces operator. The fact that he's active duty on leave from Germany is just something that sets him apart in so many ways from the terrorist profile we've become accustomed to in these attacks, and raises real questions as to what was this event in Las Vegas. Was it an attack on the building? Was it a calculated suicide? But his training for a 36-year-old, 19-year veteran, active duty U.S. military, Green Beret, special operations training, risk management and vulnerability certification, intelligence operations, this really sets him apart in terms of a higher level of training and capability than anyone we would have seen in a similar attack. So again, Jimmy, it goes back to the question of what was this? The idea of getting the Elon Musk signature car and bringing it to the gold Trump sign in Las Vegas, driving from Colorado Springs. It really suggests he's trying to send a message with visualization, but he allegedly, if he is the same person whose body was found in that car, they still haven't been able to identify that body, but they know who rented the car. If he is the individual inside, Apparently, he chose to press that detonator and then remain inside as this conflagration went out.
Right. I mean, there is the symbolism that you just referenced, John, in driving a Tesla Cybertruck up to the Trump Hotel in Vegas and blowing it up. There's also this connection, this potential, I suppose, military connection between this individual in Las Vegas and what took place in New Orleans. And I mean, I know we don't have any established connections or that we know about publicly at this point from official sources. But what do you make of that potential connection? I mean, that sounds like too much of a coincidence to be a coincidence.
As a former senior member of the Joint Terrorism Task Force, both in New York and Los Angeles, the idea that you've got two people with military backgrounds, one former, one active, that they go to the same off-brand rental car company, the Toro company, to rent these exotic vehicles, that they both do attacks in tourist locations on a holiday, is the kind of coincidence that you can't say has meaning, but you can't ignore it. So you go into the investigation saying, well, let's disprove it. Let's investigate our way through it and find out if we can validate it or put it aside. But you certainly can't ignore it. Too many factors there.
The FBI is working to determine whether the Tesla Cybertruck explosion earlier today is possibly connected to the New Orleans attack. Here's the moment. Police say fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel were detonated in the bed of this vehicle. The FBI also trying to figure out whether it was an act of terrorism. Local police spoke to the glaring possibility of a connection between Trump Tower and the car produced by Elon Musk's company.
Well, I mean, it's a Tesla truck, and we know that Elon Musk is working with President-elect Trump, and it's the Trump Tower, so there's obviously things to be concerned about there, and that's something we continue.
We want to turn now to another breaking news story, and I'm going to
that occurred inside of the valet because it had most of the blast go up through the truck and out. In fact, if you look on that video, you'll see that the front glass doors at the Trump hotel were not even broken by that blast.
CNN's Veronica Miracle has more details on the investigation for you.
Turn now to another breaking news story, and I'm going to caution you. We are following this developing story. We want to be clear that we do not know anything that ties what I'm about to say, that story, to what we've been talking about in New Orleans. This is just a separate story that we're learning about. Authorities are investigating a vehicle fire outside the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas that left one person dead, injured several others. We believe the vehicle in question is a Cybertruck. At a press conference this afternoon, authorities did not have any information on the cause of that fire. They said they have many unanswered questions. Here's some of what they said moments ago.
I know you're looking for a lot of answers, and ideally right now we just don't have a lot of answers. We're going to continue to work as hard as we can over the next 24 to 48 hours.
NBC News correspondent Emily Aketa is following this story and joins me now. So Emily, we played that soundbite. What else do we know at this point about what happened in Las Vegas?
So I'll start with just kind of underscoring the outstanding questions at this point. There are still so many unknowns around the circumstances of the vehicle fire, including was this mechanical, accidental, intentional? Authorities would not weigh in on that. But we know that fire and police in Las Vegas responded to the valet section just outside, as you can see on your screen, of the Trump Hotel in Las Vegas. That's on the northern end of the Las Vegas Strip, to a vehicle fire. The fire has since been put out, but they are encouraging people to avoid the area. We learned from authorities moments ago that 7 people sustained minor injuries, some transported to the hospital, and one person who had been in that Cybertruck, they did die. Now, looking at various videos posted to social media, you can see smoke billowing into the sky from a distance away. You can see the flames on your screen right there as well. Some people on social media describing hearing loud sounds and types of explosions, but we're still waiting for more information, and authorities say they expect to be able to share more information in the coming hours. It appears that it was, again, seeing on your screen, a Cybertruck. That is one of the newer vehicles from Tesla, Elon Musk's company. We know Elon Musk does have a position in the incoming administration under Donald Trump in his presidential administration, Kate.
All right. And Emily, what have we heard? Have we heard anything from the Trump organization since that was outside a Trump hotel?
So the Trump organization, as well as Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, posting to social media saying they acknowledge the electric vehicle fire, also writing in part, the safety and well-being of our guests and staff remain our top priority. We extend our heartfelt gratitude to the Las Vegas Fire Department and local law enforcement. The FBI is now also involved with this. Also, the governor acknowledging that they are monitoring the situation as well. But still a rapidly developing situation, Kate, with so many unanswered questions. But you can understand the concern given the timing and the location of the.
Our John Miller is telling us he has spoken to multiple law enforcement officials who say that the driver of the Cybertruck has a military background. Now, law enforcement officials say they know the name of this driver who died in the explosion, but they are not going to be releasing the identity of that driver until they notify the next of kin. We understand that this driver was in Las Vegas for about an hour driving around the Strip before pulling up to Trump Tower before that explosion happened. And authorities say the driver rented the Cybertruck in Colorado via the Turo app before driving down to Las Vegas. Video released by law enforcement shows explosives that were contained inside the truck, which included fireworks, gas tanks, and camping fuel, and all of that was connected to a detonation system that was controlled by the driver. And the sheriff pointed out, which is really incredible, how the Cybertruck actually contained the explosion. The way that it was built forced the explosion to go upwards instead of outwards, which meant that the glass from Trump Tower was not broken, and 7 people nearby were injured, but with minor injuries. All of them are okay. They've all been released from the hospital. The driver did die, and Las Vegas police believe that this was an isolated incident. They are not yet willing to say if this was, in fact, connected to what happened in New Orleans, but it is quite unusual that both the drivers in these incidents rented their cars from Turo. We do have a statement from Turo, and they said they're cooperating with these investigations, but they also said that neither of the drivers had criminal backgrounds, which would have flagged them as security threats.
Tesla Cybertruck that police say was intentionally detonated outside of the Trump International Hotel in Las Vegas. This is, as of this morning, being investigated as a possible act of terrorism.
As of right now, our number one goal is to ensure that we have the proper identification of the subject involved in this incident. Following that, our second objective is to determine whether this was an act of terrorism or not. I know everybody's interested in that word and trying to see if we can say, hey, this is a terrorist attack. That is our goal, and that's what we're trying to do.
All right, CNN Chief Law Enforcement and Intelligence Analyst John Miller is with us. CNN Law Enforcement Analyst and former Secret Service agent Jonathan Wackrow is with us. We're going to dig into a lot of different things right now. John, first, just what's the latest on the Las Vegas investigation?
Well, the Las Vegas investigation is taking an interesting turn as they get deeper into the profile of the individual who rented the vehicle. Now, let's go full stop here for a second. They believe they know who rented the vehicle, but they are not 100% certain that that is the person who's in the vehicle, because that body, because it's badly burned, has not been identified. But the renter, like the New Orleans suspect, is military background, but not former military. He's active duty military with 19 years plus of service, and he's part of Special Forces Command. He is highly trained in communications, electronic measures for bomb detections, intelligence operations. He would be one of the most sophisticated in terms of training people in the Green Beret.
Okay, just so we're talking about these two different things, the similarities are both rental electric vehicles from this Turo place, both military backgrounds, explosives in both trucks, both attacks happened on New Year's in tourist locations.
That's right. And that is why they say we can't eliminate the possibility that they're connected. And yet, if you look at New Orleans, where he does 5 recordings apparently in the dark as he's driving, towards Louisiana from Texas, he's talking about family problems, financial problems, his life coming apart at the seams, and that he's joined ISIS, and that's why he's doing this. If you look at Las Vegas, so far, it appears that they don't have communications or a clear motive from the individual who's in that truck.
All right, so Jonathan Wackrow, right now we have warrants being executed in New Orleans at Airbnbs, in Houston at the home of the New Orleans attacker, I guess in Colorado at the home of the person tied to the rental vehicle in the Las Vegas attack. We're 24 hours in. What's taking so long here in this search process?
Well, the search process needs to operate in different phases. One, you have to actually go to the court to get those warrants themselves. You have to swear out in front of a magistrate and make sure that the legal process and the legal justification for going into these locations is validated. From there, it's not like what you see on television where the police just rush in and look for items of evidentiary value. What they actually have to do is, because we have explosives that are involved here, you have to first make sure and focus on officer safety and scene safety. So what's going on is explosive technicians are going into these sites first, not looking for items of evidentiary value, but ensuring that there's no primary explosives, that there are no booby traps, that it is safe for the investigators to go in and then conduct a very methodical search for everything that's on that warrant and anything that's within plain sight that is of evidentiary value that can be used to then piece together, to really find a motive and the intent for these different attacks.
And again, one of the things John Miller pointed out right there, in New Orleans, you do have this trail of radicalization. Mm-hmm. In Las Vegas, we don't even have a name yet, so we don't have anything like that just yet.
Yeah, we don't have a name, and we also, like, the targeting locations of both are different, right? Because one, you had a known event, you had, it is a target of opportunity, it's a soft target, where you knew from a targeting standpoint that if I launched an attack there, the likelihood of high casualties was going to be there. The secondary in Las Vegas is a different construct. 9:40 on, or 8:40-ish on New Year's morning in Las Vegas.
That's a good point.
Not a lot of people there, so you're not really launching an attack. While it is an iconic site, it is a site because it is the former it's
the Trump Hotel.
Trump Hotel. That there is significance there, but in terms of causing damage. And then the second part of that, and John and I were talking beforehand, is what we know potentially of the driver of the Cybertruck with the military background using low-order explosives, basically gasoline and black powder pyrotechnics, is not going to give you the blast radius that you need and the overpressurization to cause damage to the building or damage to others nearby.
Also, something about the behavior of the truck beforehand, John, you were talking about?
Well, he gets into town, and there's a combination of things. License plate readers that track him through Las Vegas from the moment he enters town, but also from Tesla, every place he stopped driving from where he started in Colorado Springs to charge that vehicle till he gets to Las Vegas. So they've got a good timeline. He spends about an hour driving around the Strip. He stops at a motel along the way for a period of time, but an hour before the explosion, he enters that driveway with his vehicle and does a slow pass around past the valet people and everything. And you have to ask yourself, what's he doing? To Jonathan's point, is he saying, it's 7-something in the morning and there's not a lot of people here. I'm going to come back in an hour and see if there's a bigger crowd. Or is he just doing his reconnaissance as a military operator would, which is, who stops you where? Where am I going to place this? So it's going to be, so the Elon Musk vehicle is going to be right under the Trump sign. We don't know what the symbolism that they were going for in this attack was. But I mean, they're looking at all of that. The idea that he drove through an hour beforehand is suggestive.
So we were 24 hours into this. I mean, almost literally in the Las Vegas thing, a little bit more in New Orleans. What do you think the next big piece of information will be, or what's reasonable to expect that we could learn soon?
Well, we're going to start getting information from these search warrants, right? And we're going to start understanding, from the localities of, both attackers, their residences in Houston and other locations, what can we garner from that, right? And I think, we have more information, more direction with the New Orleans attacker as opposed to Las Vegas right now. But that will change once we, identify the body, once we get these items of evidentiary value, we start piecing together, and trying to, figure out what is the motive here, what is driving both of these attacks, and are they connected? We have some threads here of connectivity, but again, the way that these attacks were launched, to me, signals some sort of differentiator.
I mean, how long could it take in Las Vegas to get some kind of confirmation one way or the other of ISIS ties, which I think would be hugely significant?
Well, if ISIS is going by its own playbook, they would have, if they recruited these people online, they would have obtained martyrdom videos from one or both of them. We've got clues from the self-made videos from the New Orleans attacker, which tells us a lot, but nothing yet from the Las Vegas piece. But ISIS could come out with their own communique if they're connected that way, or we could see something completely different. I mean, as Jonathan points out, there's two critical factors here, which is who are they working for, if anybody? How were they recruited? The second factor is who else might have been involved. We're seeing signs of that in Las Vegas, in New Orleans. We're not seeing signs of that yet.
And you have been watching a CBS News special report live from New Orleans, Louisiana, following up on a press conference from not only law enforcement officials, but also local and state officials talking about the latest updates on this terror attack that happened early New Year's morning on Bourbon Street. So I just want to repeat a few of the headlines to come out of this press conference. Number one, the FBI believes there is no accomplice, no other threat to the public as of right now. 2 IEDs were found near Bourbon Street. They say were placed there by the attacker just a couple of hours before the actual attack with that pickup truck. Also, Bourbon Street will reopen at about 2:30 this afternoon, their time, ahead of the Sugar Bowl game later on this afternoon at 3 o'clock. And also a big headline here. They say, as of right now, there is no link between this terrorist attack in New Orleans and the Cybertruck explosion in Las Vegas. But right away, I want to bring in Anna Schechter, who is the senior coordinating producer for the CBS News Crime and Safety Unit. She joins us now. Anna, authorities talked about trying to find possible accomplices. After we just mentioned this latest update, the focus of this investigation
in Las Vegas
has
now,
shifted back to the
Cybertruck
suspect. What is the FBI saying about the suspect today? What did you take out of this press conference?
We learned a lot of new details, Liz, that were really interesting, particularly in the hours leading up to the attack. What I found interesting that we didn't note during the special report is that the videos were seemingly addressed to his family and friends, and that he initially was planning to carry out the attack and hurt his relatives and friends, but he wanted the attention to be on his extremist message. He wanted the focus to be on, quote, the war between the believers and non-believers, end quote. That is directly from that assistant director of the FBI, Christopher Rea, who was just speaking there at the podium. So that really jumped out at me, that he posted 5 videos to his social media in the early hours of December, right before he carried out the attack. It seems they were saying that it was, within in just a few hours, he was also placing those IEDs himself, those 2 IEDs that they believe were functional and that were neutralized by law enforcement. Just a reminder, they had the FBI, bomb squad, ATF, HSI, all on the scene at that horrific attack on Bourbon Street. But the profile of Mr. Jabbar, the attacker, is now coming together. We've dug in, our confirmed team, our own Rona Tarrant. She looked into his background and went through the divorce records. And so we've learned that he actually had been, up until recently, earning a pretty good salary. He reported $125,000 a year annually, but that he was in debt of about $40,000. This was back in 2022. He was explaining in filings to his ex-wife's lawyer that he couldn't make payments. So he was having financial struggles despite holding down a job. But it appears that in recent months and years, his life began to spiral downward. The FBI also said at the presser that he said in one of the videos that he posted right before the attack that he joined ISIS before this summer. So they are still firm in their analysis that his attack was inspired by ISIS. Of course, we can't forget that ISIS flag that was attached to the back of the truck when he was attacking. Also, authorities are still asking the public for help, for tips. They are relying on people to come forward and explain what they saw, particularly on Bourbon Street. They want to know a little bit more about how he was able to place those IEDs and carry out the attack without being stopped. Liz.
And Anna, I want to go back to that moment in the press conference when they talked about the videos the attacker posted on social media that he was inspired by ISIS. Let's listen to that real quick.
And he posted several videos to an online platform proclaiming his support for ISIS. There were 5 videos posted on Jabbar's Facebook account, which are time-stamped beginning at 1:29 a.m. and the last at 3:02 a.m. In the first video, Jabbar explains he originally planned to harm his family and friends, but was concerned the news headlines would not focus on the, quote, war between the believers and the disbelievers, end quote. Additionally, he stated he had joined ISIS before this summer. He also provided a will and testament. FBI and ATF. FBI, we have a couple different scenes at the location.
Yeah, a couple questions to come out of those statements on those videos posted on Facebook. The big question right now is, how did the suspect become connected to ISIS? And then later on, possibly in the coming days, is if Facebook knew about these videos, did they alert law enforcement? But let's talk about first how the suspect possibly got connected to ISIS in the first place.
It's a great question, and it appears that investigators are still trying to pin that down. They have obtained 3 cell phones, 2 laptops. They're scouring his social media. They're presenting the information that they have buttoned up, these 5 videos, but they're looking to see who he was communicating with online. Was there somebody who was directing him to take action, or was this just a lone wolf who was inspired by the idea of ISIS and sort of this war on the West, and a war that he described in his video, according to the FBI, as a war between the believers and the disbelievers? Of course, investigators are going through all of his associates. Who was he spending time with? Who might have inspired him to carry out such an attack? But at this point, we don't have anything definitive that links him to a member of ISIS or other terror organization who was giving him any direction. Liz?
And Anna, authorities were also very careful to say that there is no known link between the attack in New Orleans and the Vegas Cybertruck explosion that happened just a few hours after the New Orleans attack. But there are some similarities to them, notably that both attackers were in the military at some point, and then also they used the same car rental company to get both of these different trucks. What can you tell us about the investigation into the Cybertruck explosion in Vegas?
Well, immediately after that explosion, investigators started to look into that bizarre and mysterious explosion, which involved fireworks and gasoline in the trunk of that Tesla Cybertruck, and they're still working. The Army hasn't even released the driver's name, although our team has spoken to his family members who are still, at this hour, still waiting for confirmation from federal authorities. The FBI did go to his home in Colorado Springs. They're doing the same sweep of electronic devices that they did on Jabbar. As you noted, there are no known connections, but it is interesting that they both used Turo, which is an app kind of like almost like Airbnb, but for cars, where you can rent a car from another person. And they were both driving electric vehicles. Investigators were looking into whether there was some kind of coordination. They have not found any, according to that latest presser. We've asked Turo as well, did both men request electric vehicles, and in particular Tesla? So that's definitely a line of questioning. At this point, it appears to be a very bizarre coincidence that both incidents occurred within hours of each other, both using electric vehicles. Both men were in the military and served overseas in Afghanistan. There was some overlap. Both men also had spent time in North Carolina. So investigators have been looking at all of this and determined at this point they have no evidence of a link between the two men or the two incidents. Liz?
All right. Anna Schechter, the senior coordinating producer for the CBS News. Okay, so a little bit more about the Las Vegas attack outside the Trump Hotel with this Cybertruck explosion. We know the person who was inside that Cybertruck, they are right now the only person who died in this explosion, but it did injure 7 others. And police are looking into this as a possible act of terror. Now, Tesla CEO Elon Musk tweeted out a response saying in part that the explosion was caused by very large fireworks and or a bomb and is unrelated to the vehicle itself. Let's go to Brian Will, who's a reporter for our CBS partner KLAS, and he has reports on details of the bombing and what police have uncovered so far.
Good morning, Liz. We're learning new details about the Cybertruck explosion here in Las Vegas and about the person in this case, that he was a former Green Beret. Now, the investigation into the Cybertruck continues and stretches into Colorado. We're learning that 37-year-old Matthew Livesberger rented the Cybertruck there. He was also an active-duty U.S. service member who was serving in Germany at the time, but was on leave at Colorado at the time. Relatives confirmed he rented a Cybertruck and also tell us his wife had not heard from him for several days. Right now, investigators are on the scene at his condo in Colorado Springs, and FBI Denver has confirmed they are investigating ties to the case here in Las Vegas. The attack came just hours after celebrations on the Las Vegas Strip for New Year's had wrapped up, which means not many people were out and around the Strip on New Year's Day. Law enforcement used surveillance video and GPS data to track the truck, which came from Colorado and arrived here in Las Vegas at 7:30 on New Year's Day. The vehicle can be tracked driving around the Strip for nearly an hour in what appears to be some sort of recon before pulling up in front of Trump International Hotel. Then 20 seconds later, the blast rocked the front of Trump Tower. The bed of the truck, according to Metro Police, contained gas canisters, camping fuel, and large firework mortars. It's still not clear how the explosives were ignited, and last night the sheriff said they had not processed the vehicle, but it had been towed away from the scene. Now, the similarities in this case between New Orleans and Las Vegas are striking. Same day, same rental service, the car-sharing app Turo, and both involve U.S. military servicemen who served in Afghanistan around the same time. The main difference here in Las Vegas is what authorities say is an isolated incident, and there is no indication that it is linked to ISIS at this time. Now, Las Vegas Metro Police and the FBI are coordinating the investigation here, and you can see some of that this morning with Las Vegas Metro Police still on scene and some of the area cordoned off. Now, the hotel is closed to guests who have not checked in yet, and we expect a presser in the coming hours and days with more details in this case. Reporting outside Trump Tower, Brian Will, CBS News.
Two U.S. defense officials tell NBC News the man who died in the vehicle that was packed with explosives was a member of the Army's Special Forces and was still on active duty. That blast happened yesterday morning and left at least 7 people hurt, and we are told that incident is being investigated as a possible terrorist attack, but so far, no official word on a motive. NBC News correspondent Morgan Chesky is live for us right now in Las Vegas. Morgan, so much has happened just in the past 24 hours. The FBI said there is no definitive link between the New Orleans attack and this explosion in Las Vegas. But do lay out what we know at this point, specifically about this U.S. Army soldier who died.
Yeah, Morgan, a lot of questions coming in right now. Investigators maintaining this is still a very fluid investigation here. That potential connection, one that the question's been raised, but just in New Orleans a few minutes ago, we heard, at least for right now, there does not appear to be any potential connection between the tragedy in New Orleans and between the Cybertruck explosion here on the steps of the Trump International Hotel. As for that individual you mentioned, two senior law enforcement officials have told NBC News that the man who rented that Cybertruck in Colorado using the car-sharing app Turo has been identified as Matthew Allen Livelsberger. Now, he is a member of the armed forces. In fact, he was a member of special forces. And right now, he's only been identified as the individual who rented that Cybertruck. It remains to be seen if he was actually the one inside who died. And that is part of this very much ongoing investigation, according to both the local and federal investigators. What's interesting about this is that the FBI department in Colorado has announced that they are conducting a series of searches in and around the Colorado Springs area, and that is connected to this very investigation here. So with the knowledge that this Cybertruck was rented in the state of Colorado by Livelsberger, and that has a concurrent FBI search ongoing, we do see more potential pieces starting to fall into place. What remains to be seen is that if there was any potential connection from Livelsberger, who rented the Cybertruck, and the individual who rented that truck in New Orleans. However, again, at least at this point in this investigation, there is nothing tying those two individuals together, although they do both appear to have been members of the military. Morgan,
give us a sense. I mean, what else do we know, though, specifically about the next steps in this investigation? I mean, so much has happened. This is such an active, fluid, moving situation. Can you give us a sense of the timeline of what happened yesterday?
Well, yes, and technology has really been a big help in figuring out a bit of a timeline here. We know, thanks to Tesla, they were able to provide information from their charging stations that allowed authorities to somewhat pinpoint the course that this Cybertruck took from Colorado here to Las Vegas. And then, using surveillance cameras in the cities, they saw the Cybertruck driving up and down the famed Vegas Strip around 7:30 yesterday morning, saying that it was around 8:21 exactly when the Cybertruck pulled into the valet area of the Trump International Hotel behind me. And then, shortly after arriving, witnesses say it was only 10 to 15 seconds later that surveillance video captured that incredible explosion that happened. Fire crews on the scene in about 4 minutes, and they were able to contain that blaze to really just the vehicle itself. And it was after that we learned that they did recover a single body from the charred wreckage of that Cybertruck. But they also found, Morgan, in the back of the truck, canisters of gasoline, canisters of camping fuel, as well as the remnants of large commercial grade of firework mortars, several of which you can really hear going off in some of the videos that authorities have provided. The whistling, the crackling that we're used to hearing with fireworks, you can absolutely hear in some of the videos that have been released. So all of this